We always hear that records are meant to be broken. It is a saying we hear all the time in sports. We tune in to watch games because we want to see history happen right in front of our eyes. We always believe that eventually someone will come along who is faster, stronger, or just has a better jump shot. And sometimes we actually get to see the impossible almost happen. Just recently, we were all reminded that crazy things can still happen in the modern game. On March 10, 2026, Bam Adebayo did something that literally left the entire basketball world speechless. Down in Miami at the Kaseya Center, Bam went absolutely crazy and scored 83 points against the Washington Wizards. The Heat won that game 150-129, but nobody even cared about the final score. All anyone could talk about was Bam. He was completely unstoppable, getting to the free throw line for a mind-blowing 43 attempts. With that performance, he passed Kobe Bryant's legendary 81-point game from 2006. Bam's 83 points is now the second highest single-game scoring total in the entire history of the NBA. Watching that game felt like watching a video game on the easiest difficulty. It made us all think that maybe, just maybe, any record can fall. But here is the catch. Even on the greatest scoring night of Bam Adebayo's life, a night where absolutely everything went perfectly and he played out of his mind, he was still 17 points short of the #1 spot. He was still miles away. And that brings us to the real truth about basketball history. While some records can be challenged, there are other records that are locked away in a vault forever. They are never going down. They belong to legends who put up numbers that look like typos or glitches in the system. To really understand how impossible these milestones are, we have to look at what the legends of the game have actually done, starting with the man who holds that ultimate scoring record. You could honestly make an entire movie just about Wilt Chamberlain and the records he set, but let us stick to the ones that make absolutely zero sense. First up is his 100-point game. He did this way back on March 2nd, 1962. We are well past the 60-year anniversary of that game, and we're probably going to hit the 100-year anniversary without anyone ever touching it. Bam getting 83 was a miracle, and Kobe getting 81 was magic, but 100 is just a different universe. What makes Wilt's night even crazier is that he did it without a three-point line. Every single shot was worth 2 points or 1 point. He took 63 shots that night and made 28 free throws. That is wild, because Wilt was basically a coin flip from the free throw line his whole career, shooting around 51%. But on that magical night in Pennsylvania, he just could not miss. If you think one game is crazy, you have to look at Wilt's stats for that entire 1962 season. His entire season is written in concrete. He averaged 50.4 points per game. Let that sink in for a second. A great player today might score 50 points once or twice a year if they're having the best night of their life. Wilt averaged that every single game for an entire 80-game season. The closest anyone else has ever gotten to that is Michael Jordan, and he's topped out around 37 points per game. Wilt was taking almost 40 shots a game that year. Today, guys rarely average more than 20 shots. But the most impossible Wilt record from that year is his playing time. He averaged 48.5 minutes per game. A standard basketball game is only 48 minutes long. How do you average more time than the game even allows? Because Wilt played every single minute of every single game, plus all the extra time in 7 different overtime games. He sat on the bench for a grand total of 8 minutes that entire season, and that was only because he got kicked out of one game in the fourth quarter. If a player tried to play every minute of every game today, the medical staff would lose their minds. The human body is just not meant to do that, but Wilt did it. And just to throw one more Wilt stat at you before we move on, how about the time he grabbed 55 rebounds in a single game? He did this against Bill Russell, another absolute legend who was one of the greatest defenders ever. 55 rebounds. Today, if a player gets 20 rebounds in a game, they are all over the highlight shows. Getting 30 is almost unheard of. Yusuf Nurkic got 31 recently, and it was a massive deal. Wilt got 55. The game was just different back then. The pace was insanely fast with tons of missed shots, and Wilt was simply bigger, stronger, and more athletic than anyone else on the floor. Nobody is ever grabbing 55 boards in an NBA game again. The math just doesn't allow for it anymore. But it's not just guys from the 60s who hold unbreakable records. Take a look at what LeBron James has been doing in the modern era. The man crossed the 50,000-point mark when you combine his regular season and playoff buckets. He created a club where he's the only member, and there's not even a line outside the door. Nobody is getting in anytime soon. Just look at his playoff scoring alone. He has over 8,000 career points in the postseason. To put that into perspective, Michael Jordan is second all-time, and he's barely pushing 6,000 points. Active guys who are legendary scorers like Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry are thousands of points behind LeBron. He's basically played entire extra seasons of basketball just in the playoffs.
But the most insane LeBron stat is his streak of scoring in double digits. He has scored at least 10 points in over 1,290 straight regular season games. He started this streak way back in 2007. Think about how much the world has changed since 2007, and LeBron has just been out there getting his 10 points minimum every single night he plays. He has had a few close calls over the years. There was a game against the Phoenix Suns where he only had 7 points with 2 minutes left, and he had to drill a late three-pointer to keep the streak alive. There was another time he messed up his ankle really bad, hit a shot to get to 10 points, and then immediately limped to the locker room for the rest of the night. The only guy who even had a streak going that was kind of close was James Harden, and his run ended at 450 games because he got hurt and had to leave a game early. LeBron passing Michael Jordan's old record of 866 games was crazy, but pushing it near 1,300 is just legendary durability. Speaking of doing things no one else can do, we have to talk about Stephen Curry and the three-point line. We all know Steph changed the way basketball is played. Kids all over the world pull up from way behind the line because of him, but the numbers back up his greatness in a way that is hard to wrap your head around. He has created a one-man category for three-pointers. He crossed the 4,000 mark for his career. Only one other player in the entire history of the sport has even made 3,000, and that is James Harden. Harden is a great shooter, but he is incredibly far behind Curry. Harden averages about 200 threes a season, so catching Steph is basically impossible, especially when you realize Steph is still adding to his lead every single time he steps on the court. When Steph finally hangs up his shoes, that three-point record is going to sit at the top of the mountain forever. Now, let us look at a record that is frozen in time because the league literally changed the rules to stop it from happening ever again. Back in the 2001 season, Rasheed Wallace was playing for the Portland Trail Blazers. Rasheed was an amazing player, super talented, but he also had a really short fuse when it came to the referees. That year, his relationship with the officials went from bad to completely broken. He got hit with 41 technical fouls in a single season. He was getting thrown out of games left and right, getting 18 ejections in total. It got so out of hand that a few years later, the NBA put their foot down. They made a new rule that says if a player gets 16 technical fouls in a season, they get suspended for a game without pay. If they keep getting them, they get suspended again. So to break Rasheed's record of 41 technicals, a player today would have to serve 14 games just from suspensions. No coach, no team, and no front office is going to put up with a player missing 14 games because they cannot stop yelling at the refs. So that record is permanently frozen in time. Rasheed is going to hold that one forever. There's another record that is frozen in time just because of weird scheduling, and that belongs to a guy named Wilt Bellamy. Back in the late 60s, Bellamy was playing for the New York Knicks. He played 35 games for them to start the year. Then he got traded to the Detroit Pistons. Because the two teams had totally different schedules and the Pistons had not played as many games yet, Detroit still had a ton of games left on their calendar. Bellamy ended up playing 53 games for Detroit. If you add that up, it brings his total for the season to 88 games. An NBA season is only 82 games long. Sometimes guys get traded today and end up playing 83 or maybe 84 games. Buddy Hield just did that recently playing for the Pacers and the Sixers. But to squeeze in 88 games, The schedules are just too balanced and perfectly planned out by computers now. It was a one-time glitch in the matrix that will never line up that perfectly again. When we talk about hustle and doing the dirty work under the basket, Moses Malone is the absolute king of the offensive rebound. He has over 6,700 offensive rebounds in his NBA career. If you count his time in the ABA before the leagues merged, the number goes up to over 7,300. Think about how hard it is to get an offensive rebound. You're fighting against bigger guys who already have the inside position, and you have to jump up through traffic to grab a missed shot. Moses was just relentless. He has 2,500 more offensive rebounds than the guy in second place. To put that in a modern perspective, Andre Drummond is the active leader right now. Drummond is a massive guy who only focuses on rebounding, and he's still 3,600 rebounds behind Malone. When Moses used to just tip his own misses back to himself over and over until he finally scored. It's a level of pure grit and muscle that you just don't see in the numbers anymore. If we move away from the big man and look at the guards, John Stockton holds records that make modern point guards look like they're playing a completely different sport. Stockton has almost 15,800 career assists. He led the league in passing for 9 straight years. He's so far ahead of everybody else on the list that it honestly looks like a mistake. Chris Paul is second all time. Chris Paul is a living legend, a guy everyone calls the point god, and he's still over 3,000 assists behind Stockton. Stockton just never got hurt, and he always made the perfect pass. He owns the top 4 highest assist seasons in the history of the league. He had 31 different games where he got 20 or more assists. And oh, by the way, he also has the most career steals ever, beating Jason Kidd by almost 600. Stockton was just a machine of efficiency that never broke down, never took a night off, and never made a mistake.
Speaking of never taking a night off, we have to talk about AC Green. They call them the Iron Man for a very good reason. He played in 1,192 consecutive games. That means for 16 straight seasons, across 4 different teams, he never missed a single day of work. He did not rest. He played through minor injuries. He just showed up to play every single day from 1986 to 2001. He even managed to play 83 games one year because of a mid-season trade. In today's game, players rest just because they have a back-to-back game on the schedule. The idea of playing every game for a decade and a half is totally foreign to modern basketball culture. Mikal Bridges is the active guy right now who is known for never missing games. He has played over 500 straight games without sitting out. But to catch AC Green, Bridges would have to keep that up for almost 8 more full seasons without rolling an ankle, catching a bad flu, or needing a rest day. It just shows how mentally tough Green was and how incredibly lucky his body was to avoid a serious injury for that long. Then there is the defensive side of the ball, where Hakeem Olajuwon was sending everybody shots into the third row. Hakeem has 3,830 career blocks. He is more than 500 blocks ahead of Dikembe Mutombo, who is second on the list. Mutombo is famous for his finger wag after blocking shots, but Hakeem was doing it way more often and with incredible grace. People look at Victor Wembanyama right now and think that maybe this kid could be the one to do it. The kid is super tall, has arms that reach the ceiling, and is averaging almost 4 blocks a game early in his career. But to catch Hakeem, Wembanyama would have to keep up that insane block rate and never miss a game for the next 13 years. That is how massive Hakeem's number is. It takes a perfect storm of height, jumping ability, perfect timing, and staying healthy for almost 2 decades to even get close to that neighborhood. Sometimes a record happens not over a whole career, but in just one random night where everything goes perfectly for a player and his team. That is exactly what happened for Scott Skiles on December 30th, 1990. He was playing for the Orlando Magic, and they were putting up a massive amount of points against the Denver Nuggets. Skiles ended up with 30 assists in a single game. Think about how many times a teammate has to actually make a shot for you to get an assist. 30 times in a 48-minute game, Skiles passed the ball to a guy who immediately put it in the hoop. He also scored 22 points himself that night, while his team scored 155 points. The closest anyone has come recently is Rajon Rondo, who had 25 assists a few years ago. Guys like Russell Westbrook have hit 24. Getting past 20 is an incredible achievement that makes you the player of the week. Getting to 30 means your team basically never misses a single shot, and you are the one making every single read perfectly. Finally, we cannot talk about unbreakable records without talking about the ultimate goal of the sport, which is winning championships. Bill Russell played 13 seasons in the NBA. He won 11 championships. Let me say that again so it sinks in. 11 rings in 13 years. From 1957 to 1969, the Boston Celtics completely owned the sport of basketball, and Russell was the heartbeat of that team. Yes, the league had fewer teams back then. Yes, he had amazing teammates who are also sitting in the Hall of Fame right now, but Russell was the ultimate winner. He did whatever the team needed to win the game, focusing heavily on playing perfect defense and grabbing every single rebound, averaging over 22 rebounds for his entire career. Today, players change teams constantly trying to chase just one ring to cement their legacy. Winning 2 or 3 in a row is considered a massive dynasty that people will talk about forever. The idea of one player leading a team to 11 championships in 13 years is something straight out of a fairy tale. Not even the greatest players of today could imagine winning that much. Even the guys who chase rings by joining super teams will never get to 8, let alone 11. So the next time you hear someone say that all records are made to be broken, just take a step back and look at the history books.